So what did we see in the Government of India Act of 1919? Apart from all these provisions which are like extremely important, we also saw that they said that there would be an appointment of the commission to inquire into how the things are happening and all. Okay, so now this video would be about that story actually. Before we actually proceed, the most important act, which is Government of India Act 1935, considering that majority of the provisions in our present day constitution has been borrowed from that act. ठीक है, क्योंकि उसके बाद जो लास्ट वाला है that is just the Independence Act of 1947. So if you just know the briefings of it, that would be okay. But the 35 one is extremely important. But before that, we need to understand the background that I was talking about. Now the commission that they said, the name is Simon Commission. What all details are here? Of course, majority has to be done in history, lekin we'll do the important points right now also. So in that 1919 Act, what the British government said that there will be appointment of a royal commission. Okay, the royal commission will be appointed, but they said it will be appointed after 10 years. So technically it should have been appointed in 1929 based on what they have said. Okay, and what would be the purpose? To report on its working. Okay, working of the provisions related to the 19 Act. But the government appointed that commission in 1927 itself. Okay, so 2 years earlier, that is why I have written -2. 2 years earlier they appointed it. Ab yahan pe this commission, which was known as the Indian Statutory Commission also. This commission submitted the report in 1930. What all things were related to the report and wo sab to modern Indian history has to take care of. But for the time being, understand about it. Now, this commission, it was actually chaired by the person known as Sir John Simon. And therefore, it was known as the Simon Commission. This is one thing that you will remember. Apart from that, it was a 7-member commission. And all were Europeans, none Indians. ठीक है, all white commission इसको बोलते हैं, because all were Europeans and none of the members were Indians. Now here the problem was, of course, and that is a very legit and a genuine thing. If you are naming a commission as an Indian Statutory Commission, which is like you have to report on the working of an act in India, you have to see if things are happening good or not in India, you have to take care of Indian people, you have to further suggest recommendations for the Indian people. When everything is surrounded around the people of India and you have not even a single Indian member in your commission, how does that make sense? So here the problem was that, and because of that this commission was boycotted also. ठीक है, आपने Go Simon, Go Black play card and all of those things आपने photos में देखे होंगे, but we'll talk about it in the history portion. अभी हम यहाँ बात करते हैं. Now, जो recommendations थे इस commission के, what were the recommendations? Because they submitted the report in 1930. So the recommendation was, firstly, the diarchy should be abolished. What was diarchy? I hope you remember this one, that we have seen the transferred and the reserved subject in the provincial subjects. ठीक है, तो इन्होंने बोला diarchy को abolish करो. Then the responsible government thing should not only be for the central but for the provinces also. So it was about extending it to the provinces also. And then it also recommended there should be establishment of Federation of British India and Princely States. Because till this point of time, only the British India, which means the provinces, were being focused. Now they also tried ki there should be the inculcation of, or there should be the, you would say, it's inclusion of the princely states also. And then continue the communal electorate, like it was already happening since 1909 and then in 1919. So it said it should be continued. Now, it's not that only these many recommendations were there. There were many others. But for our understanding right now, only this much is sufficient. Okay. Now, when the British got this report from the Simon Commission, and so of course they wanted to discuss on it, they'll not just blindly follow or reject anything. So to discuss about the Simon Commission recommendation, the British called 3 round table conferences. I assume again, at least you would have heard about it. Okay, so they were called by the British government so that we can consider the proposals of the Simon Commission and accordingly discuss what we need to do in the future. And then based on the discussion, now we are not doing the details of RTC here. It is not the subject matter right now. So a white paper on constitutional reforms. Again, this is very important term. Okay, white paper on which means a discussion, final concluding paper you can say, on constitutional reforms was published 1933 में by the British government. And यहाँ पर they talked about that, okay, we'll have the federal setup, we'll also have the provincial autonomy. ठीक है. Then further they had some joint committee under the Viceroy in Lithgow further to discuss about the schemes. वहाँ पे भी उनका recommendation आया. फिर further all of those things happened. But finally, one after the other, when all of these things happened, finally क्या आया? Not finally, but I'll just write so that you are not confused. एक joint committee भी बनी of British Parliament, and finally all the recommendations of the committee, of course with certain changes, were incorporated in the Government of India Act 1935. But for the timing, if you have to relate, so you will relate this and this. ठीक है, इस white paper के बाद you got to see this Government of India Act 1935. So please remember this. What are the provisions of this act is the subject matter in my next video. But abhi we'll talk about one more thing. तो यहाँ तक तो we have got this clarity. Another thing in between happened was 1932 में there was this British Prime Minister, if you must have heard his name, Ramsay MacDonald. This Prime Minister, he announced a scheme for the minority representation. That was known as the Communal Award. Why did I say that right now? Because again, this can be a potential question, that Communal Award was what? So it was actually a minority representation scheme, that the minority should get the representation, and which was announced by the British Prime Minister. So यहाँ पे इन्होंने क्या बोला? See, already with the previous acts of 1909 and 1919, we had the separate electorate, firstly for the Muslims from 1909, and then we had it for the Sikhs, the Indian Christians, the Anglo-Indians and Europeans from 1919, right? Already this was there. But now it said that the separate electorate should also be there for the depressed classes. They call the depressed classes basically to refer to the scheduled caste that we know presently. ठीक है, scheduled castes के लिए. तो उन्होंने बोला कि it should be extended to them also. Now, this was a time, अब आपको पता है 1917 से गांधी जी also had come into the picture, political picture. ठीक है, again that is the subject matter of modern Indian history. But then Gandhi ji was very disturbed and he was very distressed about this decision of extension of this communal award, ki separate electorate to the scheduled caste. Why? Because he said that by doing so, you are basically considering these people as a separate category, but actually they are not. They are part of the Hindus. So you are kind of dividing them, okay, by separate electorate. So of course he was just not ready to accept this, and then he took a fast in the Pune jail, which is the Yarwada jail. ठीक है, आपने सुना ही होगा. तो वहाँ पे उन्होंने बोला that I need corrections in this scheme or this award, I'm not ready to accept it. And then finally बहुत सारी चीज़ें हुई, and the final thing led to an agreement between the Congress leaders and the depressed classes, और एक पूना पैक्ट साइन हुआ. ठीक है, अब वो what was the story, who signed the Pune Pact and what was the implication, all of that again we'll do it later. But just remember this, what was this communal award for, and this will help you understand what was the scheme of the separate electorate in the 1935 Act also. Therefore this just mentioning here was important. So this agreement, Pune Pact, was signed, and it was said that no, the Hindu joint electorate will continue to happen. So there will be no separate electorate for the depressed classes. However, they were given reserved seat. ठीक है, reservation of seat was done for them. उनको reserved seat दे दी गई, लेकिन separate electorate. Separate electorate means that only those category voters will vote for you. Okay, reservation of seat means if this is the total seat, this much is reserved for you. But anybody could have voted. This is the difference. So, for the scheduled caste or the depressed class, the reservation of seats was there, but not the separate electorate. And that happened because of the Pune Pact. Okay, so this is the story behind this. Now that we have understood how and why the formation of Government of India Act 1935 took place, it will be easier for us when we do the provisions. And before that, I will also recommend you, so if you're watching this video, like, I'll recommend you that please revise all the earlier acts once. Of course, I remember that I'm still, left to share the questions with you, which we'll do in the coming videos. But please revise the acts that we have done by far, because you will get the terms like provincial assembly, central assembly, reserved subject, transferred subject, all federation and diarchy and all of that. So you should not get confused about the application of them in this act, because this is the final thing that we are doing. ठीक है, तो लिस्ट्स क्या था, कैसे था, कहाँ पर क्या हुआ, यू विल गेट कन्फ्यूज्ड अदरवाइज कि एक जगह से उन्होंने हटा दिया, दूसरी जगह लगा दिया, ऐसा बहुत कुछ होने वाला है. सो ऑल ऑफ दोज थिंग्स यू विल हैव टू consider. So just revise it from the previous acts. Now I'll see you guys. Take care till then. Bye bye.